Ahoy everyone, it is Jeff, otherwise known as Scummer. Welcome back to History with Scummer. It's been a little while since I've uploaded a video, but I'm here today at a historic site. First of all, before I get started, I'm going to announce I've got a sponsor for this video. I'd like to thank Diesel, aka Isaiah from RHE Podcast and YouTube channel Empathy Respect. He's kindly sponsoring this video today. By sponsoring this video, I'm saying he's very, very kindly bought me a drink out here. So thank you very much, Diesel, for that. Now, I'm stood today on the north bank of what's sometimes known as the Lower Rhine. It's a very peaceful and tranquil spot, other than a few cars going around, and it's a popular, as you can probably see here, it's a popular spot for river crossings. And there's this bridge behind me, and it's a very quiet, tranquil place right now. But in September 1944, this place was anything but tranquil. That is the John Frost Bridge, and this is the Dutch city of Arnhem. This bridge, as Lieutenant General Frederick Browning is reported to have said in the planning stages of Operation Market Garden, I think we've gone a bridge too far. Now, I should say that this isn't the original bridge. This was, but it is very similar to the original bridge. This one was built after the war. The original bridge would later on in the war be destroyed, I believe, by the Americans. But what happened here? What happened in September 1944? Now, I will not be able to give a full account and really do justice to the history of Market Garden, but I'm going to give a short introduction in this video. In 1944, the Allies are advancing. They've advanced into Belgium, but they're advancing on a broad front, and it's perhaps it's not going very fast. There's obviously issues of supplying an army that is advancing on a broad front. Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery felt he had an answer to this, and he disagreed with Eisenhower's strategy of advancing on a broad front. What he came up with was Operation Market Garden, and this plan was to be a single thrust through the Netherlands and into the heartlands of the industrial Germany. If successful, the war may have been over by Christmas 1944. But that's not what happened. This plan went badly wrong. The plan would involve taking a number of bridges from between Eindhoven and here at Nijmegen, and a couple of other towns as well. The plan would be they would drop paratroopers into each of the sites around the bridges, and then there would be a long, and it would be a single thrust as the army would come up behind them. But there were problems with this, as I said. Unfortunately, here at Arnhem, the drop zones were around 8 miles outside of town. Outside of the next town of Oosterlijk even. So normally paratroopers need to be dropped as close as they can to the site they want to take. This couldn't happen because of there were strong anti-aircraft. Germans had strong anti-aircraft batteries around here, but also they couldn't drop all of the paratroopers into one spot at one time. There was faulty intelligence as well. Even though it appears that the Allies may have been warned by the Dutch resistance that there was 2 German SS Panzer divisions in the area that were coming up to support the German army. But the Allies believed that the German army was on at breaking point. This was what the plan was predicated on. British officer. There was one British unit, the 2nd Battalion, that did get here and took the area around the north side of the bridge and held it for several days. This was the 2nd Battalion, led by Colonel John, I believe he was a colonel then, Colonel John Frost. Later would be a general. They incredibly held here for 4 days before finally being forced to surrender. But they got here. Everything went wrong. Numerous things went wrong. First of all, to the south, at Nijmegen, the American forces that were taking the bridge there took their time. Really, they didn't capture it as the bridge there as quickly as they needed to be, and they got into fighting with a German unit there. This caused a problem because this manoeuvre relied on speed. The terrain in the Netherlands, believe it or not, did not suit this, because realistically, although the Netherlands is a very flat country by and large, it is, there are so many rivers in this country and a lot of ground that is just not suitable for tanks and so on to come across. So there lies in a problem. They really have to, the entire army effectively has to funnel up a road near enough. And then other factors played into it. Faulty equipment with radios that the British had. As I said, the problem with the drop zones as well, that to defend that they couldn't send all of the troops here because they had to defend the drop zones 7 or 8 miles out of town. Bad weather played into the equation. On the second day, more British troops were supposed to be landed on the drop zones in Arnhem, but the flights were coming from Britain. The weather was not favourable. The planes and gliders couldn't drop on in time. It became, and it left Frost and his men here, the 2nd Battalion of the parachute regiment that was here. They left them holding this bank with the Germans surrounding them and and they didn't really have to. They just had to bombard them into submission, and eventually, you've got to remember, a force that's cut off supplies, ammunition. They couldn't hold out forever, and they had to surrender. Frost would surrender. Eventually, he would be free. He would be freed from a German POW camp. All of his men were captured. in March 1945, but at least 2,000 people lost, British servicemen lost their lives here. Further 6,000 captured. As I say, today it's a tranquil and peaceful spot, but we should never forget what happened here. Market Garden is still controversial to this day. Some people criticised. Numerous people came in for criticism after this. Lieutenant General Browning, the aforementioned Browning, came in for a lot of criticism, including from Frost later on. Field Marshal Montgomery came in for a lot of criticism, and bear in mind, up to this point, before this thing, Montgomery's reputation was impeccable. Montgomery was the guy who defeated Rommel in North Africa. He was a legendary British commanding officer. Had a big ego, no two ways about it. There's supposedly a conversation that took place between the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and King George VI, where Churchill is supposed to have said to the King, "You know, sometimes I feel that Montgomery is after my job." And the King of England replied, "Really? I thought he was after mine." Now I don't know if those words were ever said or took place. I can't swear to the accuracy of that story, but it is a story that shows you the fact that Montgomery was a man with a big ego. It could be argued that commanders probably do need to have an ego, but it could also be argued that here, Montgomery let it get the better of him. The Allies would have to go back to their original strategy of advancing on a broad front, and the war wouldn't end until Europe would not end until May 1945. It's theoretically, I think what's incredible when you really look at at Market Garden, and I know I haven't done it justice in this video. There's a lot I've missed out. There's some great YouTube channels that have done much deeper dives into this. Armchair Historian did a very good video on this, for example. Please go and check his video out on Operation Market Garden. But it's, again, I almost can't reconcile this with this peaceful and tranquil spot on the Lower Rhine to what happened here in September 1944. It seems almost impossible. This bridge truly was a bridge too far. Thank you very much. See you all later. Salute.